texts of the Hebrew Bible have been found and are very rare. That is, until 1947, when the discovery of a depository of scrolls in the Dead Sea caves provided us with a library of ancient manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible. Between 1947 and 1956, ancient scrolls and fragments of the Hebrew Bible were discovered in caves near the Dead Sea. These scrolls have been dated to the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE. The manuscripts discovered in the Dead Sea caves include all of the canonical books of the Hebrew Bible, with the exception of the Book of Esther. Also non-canonical books such as Enoch, Jubilees, Tobit, and Sirach, as well as Psalms that are not part of the 150 Psalms in the canonical Bible. Also sectarian books such as the Community Rule, the War Scroll, the Damascus Document, and Peshers, which are commentaries on the books of the Bible. There are several different theories on the origin of these texts. The predominating theory is that the scrolls were the work of a Jewish sect called the Essenes, who it is believed resided in nearby Qumran, and that the scrolls were hidden away in the caves to protect them from the advancing Roman army. Other theories for the writers of the scrolls include early Messianics, or Christians, or Zadokite priests. A newer theory is that the scrolls were from various libraries and synagogues in Jerusalem, about 15 miles from the caves. The most famous of the scrolls and fragments found within the Dead Sea caves is the Isaiah scroll. While most of the scrolls are fragmented, deteriorating, or incomplete, the Isaiah scroll is the only complete scroll found. The life of a scroll depends on its handling and storage, but can be in use by a community for several hundred years. Some Torah scrolls still in use in synagogues today are over 500 years old. The Isaiah scroll from the Dead Sea caves has been dated to around 200 BCE. Isaiah wrote his original scroll around 700 BCE and may have been in use up until around 200 BCE. This means that it is possible for the Isaiah scroll from the Dead Sea caves to be a copy made directly from Isaiah's original scroll.
Today I'm going to talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls is really significant. In 1947, they found in the caves in Qumran a whole bunch of scrolls hidden in jars, kept preserved for us to find. Most of the writing of like JPD documentary hypothesis was written before these findings. So it has the Dead Sea Scrolls has really put the validity of JEPD documentary hypothesis to rest, because it says it's written much later after the exile. So people make up stories and resend it made the recension to the beginning of time, which is not true. Why is the Dead Sea Scrolls so important? Understand that where does our Hebrew Bible comes from? It comes from the Masoretic text of the 900 AD. Here we see the square script of Hebrew already developed, and then the diacritical marks that denotes the vowel sounding. So that's where it came from. So that's why, without any older examples, the JPD documentary hypothesis people can get away with it, saying that it's written much later. Look at the script; it's a late script. So, but with the discovery, they did not have the help, the assistance of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was before their time. So in 1947, with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, it took a while to really unpack what was in there, to figure out how it affects our current Hebrew Bible. Did it? So it's always frightening, I guess. We don't have to be afraid, really, that each time we dig up something on the earth, that it would contradict all that we have believed all these thousands of years. We seem to think that, but it's still, so far, we have no worries of that. Every time we dig up something, it seems to confirm what we already know. So the writings of the Dead Sea Scrolls of the Qumran community is at least 1,000 years before our Masoretic text. And upon comparison, it's like, oh my goodness, it did not differ very much. Even if it did, the little that it did not alter the theology. Which means what? Which means that we had writings throughout the millennia that, even though, according to Albright, he's the foremost archaeologist, albeit not a Christian, but he does confirm the Hebrew biblical account of what happened. He says the stories possibly could have been edited and collected at a later date, but the contents, what is written there, is old, is ancient. That means Moses did write it somehow over the years, albeit it's not in the form that we see it today. Bits and pieces of scrolls here, there, and everywhere throughout the years, throughout the millennia. Other rabbis have gone into it, looked at it. This was their sacred scriptures, so they have read it, copied it. As the script changed, they have translated it into the new script until what we have today, the Masoretic text. And we see this as proof in the Dead Sea Scrolls, albeit every book of the Hebrew Bible is represented there. They're not incomplete, but fragments of it, except the book of Esther. Why is the book of Esther absent? Esther, it has been read every year at the festival of Purim. And remember Esther. And the plot to destroy the Israelite people by the wicked Persians, I think it was. So they read it. So has Esther possibly been kept apart because they need to retrieve it every year to read it? So Esther is not among the Dead Sea Scrolls, but every book is represented, albeit in fragments. And from the fragments, you can read and compare it with the Masoretic text and see, oh my goodness, there's no change. And then we have another old document too, the Septuagint. What is the Septuagint? It's the translation of the Hebrew scriptures into Greek, because by the time of the Greek and Roman control of that area, people who does not read Hebrew anymore, especially if you don't live in Jerusalem, you live in the other parts of the Greek Empire. There are more Jews in North Africa, in Alexandria, than in Jerusalem itself, than in Judea. So now it has to be translated into Greek. So we have the Septuagint there, which is an old manuscript, which is a translation of the original Hebrew scriptures. So all this converge to compare and confirm the validity of the Hebrew Bible that we have today, that we do not need to fear. So you have these fragments of various books, whether, this is a piece of Leviticus 17, 18, or whatever, and you can go and compare it with the Masoretic text that we have today and see if anything has changed. The magnificent thing about the Dead Sea Scrolls is they found a complete scroll of Isaiah. Imagine that, all 66 chapters of it right there. It's like, whoa, what a find. And there you can read, this documents, the Dead Sea Scrolls, predates the Masoretic text that we have by 1,000 years. And they were they're in the Aramaic script, and they're also in the ancient Hebrew, the Proto-Phoenician, Proto-Canaanite, or whatever script that that we see in the Katef Hinnom inscription, that we see in the Moshe Stela, that old script, both scripts are represented. It's like, this is too huge a subject to be just a 15-minute program. But the whole idea is to inspire you to investigate. And even if you don't, what little you know, you can safely be assured that your scripture did come to you, albeit in a different form, but the contents is there. And like Albright says, it may not look like what we arranged like we have today, that rabbis later arrange it like we have today, but the contents, definitely, whatever is in there, it's old, it's ancient. That Abraham and the patriarchs brought their cosmogony stories from Ur of the Chaldees. They told their story, the creation story, Adam and Eve, over and over and over again. So albeit Moses did not live in Genesis time, but these stories would have been passed down to him, and that he would write it, and it appears in Genesis as we see it. But the later books, definitely, he was there. He was there, and God spoke to him. God inspired him to write. So those contents, the writing is old, is ancient, is Mosaic. And this is so exciting. And we all know about the Dead Sea Scroll, but really don't know the implication of it. And I've seen the scroll of Isaiah at the museum in Jerusalem. Didn't know what I was looking at, but I regret. So today I would like to go back to some of these places, the British Museum, to see the Lachish reliefs, or in Jerusalem to look again at those old manuscripts, to look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, especially the Isaiah scrolls. I hope this has inspired you, that you would continue to search for your own comfort and intellect. This is to share with you so that you be inspired too.